do you think at this point would Bernie Sanders have done better in this sort of debate? Or would he even be doing better in this election? I think it's a good question that I will listen to your responses while I go pee. But yes, let's go check
It
whatever
did.
your thoughts are.
It,
I mentioned this in the chat, and Caesar
yes, we
disagreed with
did.
me. I I've gone back and forth with it, obviously, like because I did like Bernie as a candidate, but I do feel like there's just I mean, there's a lot of different things. I do feel like I mean, I've had to like come to terms with this. Like my politics aren't necessarily the mainstream of America's politics. Um, I think we saw a lot of that with the primary. Like Bernie was
Yep.
doing good in certain demographics, and then other demographics, like he got pretty beat pretty bad. This I think it is a more of a centrist nation, and I think that Trump would have been able to play so hard on like the socialists, and like Bernie Sanders' godlessness. Like, I think that that would have been hard for him to overcome. Like, what do you say when somebody's like, "Isn't this guy an atheist?" Like, you're gonna have no atheist president in America. Like, I don't know what you'd have first, like a an unmarried president or an atheist president. Like, I do feel like Trump would have been bringing that up, and it's hard to it's going to be hard in the United States of America to overcome like certain things about your religion or lack thereof, or like he's not going to say anything about him being Jewish, but like just like the socialism thing and like, oh, you're going to just take everybody's freedoms and this, like I think that would be hard for him to overcome.
There's a couple things. One, I think the being a Jewish card will definitely hurt him in a regard because people are extremely anti-Semitic in this country, especially the evangelical right are very anti-Semitic. Ironically, they are obsessed with Israel, but that's a whole different subject, anyways. Another thing is the whole socialist card, because an issue is that as I'm typing it out in chat, is that a lot of people do not understand what it even is. First off, he's not even a fucking socialist; he's a social democrat. In any other country, he's like center left. Like if he's in Germany, he's like center left. He isn't even in like the Green Party, which is a left party there, or any pretty much any other country, more or less. So that's the whole thing when the entire political system is skewed to the right here, like insanely right, that people don't understand that. So it's one hurdle you have to get over. But the one thing that I think is in his favor is a lot of his policies are quite popular in just the general public. So, example, universal healthcare. If he gets on stage and is actually able to talk about it, people are like, "Oh, wow, he isn't as bad as I thought," because the education system here is horrible and doesn't talk about what actual leftist ideas are. Because what we've barely had any left presidencies, if any, really. I mean, center left at most with Jimmy Carter, but he's a neoliberal, so that's more center. Anyways, so within that, then once he's able to talk about the policies and not make it like the big oogie boogie man of socialism, people actually understand it, then that's when he would do better. I think in 2016, he would have done a lot better than he would have done now, per se. Like in 2016, he would have wiped the floor. He would have wiped Trump's nose, as Bam likes to say. That's Bam's favorite says right there. Just slit. He would have wiped his nose, wiped the floor down. This year would have been a little bit different, but I think he would have been better off, and Biden, just because of the whole pandemic thing in general as well. But it could also sway either way because there's a lot with it. So
I'm gonna disagree with Bam, and I was kind of thinking about this a while. Like, I think it is a great point that I think until 2016 it would have been like a lot more clear cut for Bernie Sanders, like for sure. But
I agree. I agree
still
with that
think
too.
Bernie Sanders would have been to pull it out. Okay, that's great. I still think Bernie Sanders would have pulled it out this year because I think we're kind of underestimating the impact of the pandemic this year on Americans in general. I think that like I know that how we feel about it. I know how the Republican. Oh no, I know how Donald Trump and some of his the followers like to kind of talk about this on the internet, or like to be that first comment person on Twitter with the wild claim. But I think that not only just it's not really just about people contracting coronavirus, but I think that the massive number of unemployment we had this year, the how many people lost their insurance plans and had to switch over to, if you're in California, you had to get the health net plan or whatever the hell you're doing. That stuff is a mess. It was a mess. I myself dealt with it. It wasn't easy, and I still don't even know what the hell I have right now. It's weird. So I think it's nothing too simple. I think that affected people more than we understand. And I think that in the debate format, if I don't know, of course, let's just plug and replace Joe Biden, coronavirus, everything included with Trump. I think that in that format, I think Sanders would show his hand better in terms of like being able to communicate. I think sometimes that communication factor is big, and I don't think Bernie Sanders has as many like gray areas and iffy past things that Trump could really attack with. Like, yeah, you can attack, but he's bringing up those quotes from 1994 and talking about his immigration plan under Obama. Those are actually big points. A lot of Americans do kind of look at that and be like, I mean, you were there. Like, he's right, you were there. What did you really do? I can imagine that being in the mindset of people who are the swing vote. And with Bernie Sanders, that's a fresh face. So if you're kind of like, if you kind of voted for Trump and you're like, man, like this sucked. Like, I didn't. He's acting like it's all good and he's superhuman, but I've been having a tough time just getting by. Maybe a fresh face again is something new. He might appeal to that. So that's why I'm kind of sitting on. I'm kind of sitting on like I still think he could pull it out just based upon the format of how Bernie Sanders would deliver things, having not as much, I guess, dirt on him as Biden has to answer to and will be answering to. And when these smear campaigns come out, I think it'll just keep going. So, I personally think Bernie Sanders could still squeak that, but it would be really close. I wouldn't be surprised if he lost too. I think it'd be a lot closer. But 16 for sure slide through.
What do you think, Dan?
I think that Sean. No, Sean's back. That's good. But I think that
I need to switch headphones, so I'll be back in a second.
all good. No, I it's a really interesting point that y'all were bringing across. I was listening to the whole time, truthfully. I do agree with you, Bam, in the one hand that like this is a totally different country and all of the red baiting would have definitely worked because it worked within the Democratic Party and what they were doing to red bait against Bernie Sanders and make him seen as further left as he was. I don't know if like I know he's talked about like his not being religious very much, but I think his Jewish identity, being culturally Jewish, was very important, especially in the context of this election when you have the idea of fascism and white identitarianism once again on the forefront in the United States, like body politic, as the way that's kind of being talked about. But then again, I do agree with some of the things that Cesar's saying, that if Bernie Sanders had somehow slugged it through, this would be a different messaging game because Bernie Sanders is a different messaging animal. Bernie Sanders wouldn't have done this sort of like kowtowing pussyfooting with the Trump administration that Nancy Pelosi, that Dianne Feinstein, that Chuck Schumer are doing, where it's like, oh look, clearly we're all acting in good faith here and we all want the best for the country. No, that's very much not the case. Trump wants what's best for his poll numbers and what's best for his political sort of future. While, yeah, I mean, Biden's just there. He's the avatar of the Democratic Party now. That's what it is. But I think Bernie Sanders would have put together a better message. And yeah, for those people who wanted to vote for Donald Trump because they wanted to go against the system, Bernie represented something more that was like going against that system. There are a bunch of people who like hated the establishment of things and said, yeah, I want to vote Trump because I just want to say screw you to all those politicians. But yeah, if Bernie had a chance, yeah, him too, because we're all on the same side of screw you. So I think that there's an untapped market that was there that Bernie could have definitely gone into, but we are talking about like what if scenarios at this point. I think that, yeah, while COVID was a really big thing happening, ultimately it is going to be very hard to fight against that Bernie, you're a socialist thing. That's kind of going out there, which sucks because honestly that doesn't bother me. I don't think that would bother people during a pandemic, especially. But it also sucks that when you see Joe Biden say, hey, I fought this primary, I beat the socialist, all that stuff. And like, it sucks. I know he has to say those things to appeal to the people that are in the Democratic Party like that, or like to appeal to the moderates that are watching this debate and are undecided. But that sucks. He's like does not care. It shows that Joe Biden does not care about this entire political constituency that helped him get elected. Well, let's start to wind down now, but let's get some last thoughts. Cesar, I know you.
And just really quick off that, I mean, I think it was a great point, like brought out in chat also. Like, I mean, I think that we had a certain viewpoint. Americans had a certain viewpoint about Bernie's agenda and his plans and stuff when America was at a different stage of itself at the time. And then since then, I think that his stuff kind of were like especially when there was one stimulus package, the entire pandemic, people were like, "Whoa, like damn, actually that stuff would have kind of helped." Like that, I think that kind of gained strength in itself. And also like I know you guys brought up the whole anti-Semitism thing, and I absolutely agree, America is like that, but I would kind of find it a hard ground for Trump to like attack that because it's like if we're just plug and switching Biden and Bernie Sanders and everything that's happened today is still happening, like I think the last dude to kind of really want to flex on Bernie Sanders about him not being like very Jewish and how Americans feel about Jews in general, but like you were like bringing out military to clear out people so you can take a Bible picture out front. Like there's attacks and counterattacks across the board, so it would just really be up to how the debate would go down, in my opinion. Like how the debate goes down will really factor into how important those topics are, and not necessarily like something like if they brought up it's doomed for him. Like how he responds in the debate would be really important.
Yeah, I'm just gonna respond really quick. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it honestly, like, I'm not even like super sold that Bernie would do that. I'm like 51-49, but I wasn't saying that Trump or they would hit on him being Jewish necessarily as much, but like him not being Christian. And honestly, like that is still a really big thing in this country. Like if you point out somebody, and to my knowledge, Bernie Sanders is an atheist Jewish person. So not even that he's Jewish, that he is an atheist. Like godlessness is something that's just like an anathema in this country. Like that's a hard thing to get over. You don't see very many like public out there. I'm a non-believer in God, and
I,
I think that Trump would be able to play on that a lot, regardless. But at the same time, like it, I don't know how it would go. But yeah, like during a pandemic, that would a lot of those policy talking points would help Bernie a lot. But we also see how good Trump is at changing the subject. So it would be tough. But at the same time, I'm like 51-49. Like, I don't know. I would much rather see
Yeah.
Bernie up there, though.
yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's been like journalists have had a hard time figuring out whether or not um, Bernie's like agnostic or atheist or whatsoever. He's kind of like kept that purposely sort of obscured for the reasons you're saying, Bam, because like it would be tough if he were an atheist running, because like is a very deeply Christian country. We're seeing that in our Supreme Court choice. But yeah, like overall, to kind of wrap that idea up, I don't know if Bernie would have necessarily done better in this position exactly, but I think there would have been definitely some pros and cons to the debate style.